Rafael Fiziev will put on a masterclass versus Justin Gaethje and will be well on his way to becoming a star. With UFC 286 right around the corner, this matchup between Justin Gaethje and Rafael Fiziev is seen as the most exciting fight on the card. And in my opinion, I think we're going to see a true masterclass out of Rafael Fiziev. But quickly, before we get the video started, for those of you who may not know, I'm JuicyMMA. I make opinionative MMA content, and if you guys enjoy videos similar to this, hit that subscribe button, that like button, and that post notification bell. But anyways, let's get into it. Justin Gaethje has been at the top of the lightweight division for a very long time now. He's had an extremely impressive career with wins over guys like Cowboy Cerrone, Edson Barbosa, Tony Ferguson, an absolute masterclass against him, as well as Michael Chandler. And not only has Gaethje had a very impressive career in terms of wins, literally every single one of his fights are extremely entertaining. So the fact that he is winning in these wars is actually even more impressive in my opinion. Now, although Gaethje has been extremely successful, he hasn't necessarily been the best or one of the top 2 or 3 best in the lightweight division. He ended up having 2 title shots, one against Khabib Nurmagomedov and one against Charles Oliveira, but unfortunately for Gaethje, he ended up losing both, and he ended up losing both by finish. But with that being said, he's losing to the best of the best, and the fact that Gaethje has been at the top for this long is obviously extremely impressive, and still at this point, he's very good. But in this matchup against Rafael Fiziev, I do think this is a very difficult stylistic matchup for Gaethje. But before we get into this specific matchup, let's look at Gaethje's game overall to see what he does well out there. So starting with his stand-up abilities, Gaethje is certainly known as a stand-up fighter. He has a really nice ability to throw that jab, has a phenomenal uppercut, really nice left or right hook, has the ability to switch stances at times and throw that left or right straight. Overall, in terms of his boxing ability, Gaethje definitely has a really nice ability. Now, one thing that Gaethje also does phenomenally well in terms of his boxing ability is the fact that he's able to put himself into firefights but also stay relatively technical. I think we saw a perfect example of this in his matchup against Michael Chandler, where Chandler was throwing bombs and obviously it was very hectic, but Gaethje was staying relatively technical and he was certainly getting the better of Michael Chandler. But besides his really good boxing ability, Gaethje has a phenomenal kicking game as well. He's certainly the best leg kicker in the UFC, maybe of all time. The fact that he's able to throw them with such perfect timing, in close or in far, it doesn't really matter, and alongside with the power and accuracy that he does possess, Gaethje's kicking game is just extremely deadly. Literally everybody he fights ends up having some issue with their leg within that fight. Now, in terms of his takedown defense, Gaethje has great takedown defense due to that wrestling background that he does have. But in terms of his ground game, it's kind of non-existent. Now, obviously Gaethje has some nice wrestling abilities, but for MMA purposes, it does somewhat seem like Gaethje's lost out there on the ground. Now, there has been some chatter about Gaethje potentially taking this matchup to the ground against Rafael Fiziev, as Fiziev's also a guy that doesn't have much experience on the ground either. But in my opinion, I think it's going to be very difficult to take Fiziev down, as he's proven in the past, and also it's not necessarily Gaethje's strength. So Gaethje would probably like to keep the fight on the feet unless something goes significantly wrong. Now, in terms of his chin, Gaethje has one of the most legendary chins probably of all time. He's able to take huge bombs and not get all that affected from it. Now, one thing that I will say is he did get hurt pretty significantly in the Charles Oliveira matchup, so it would be interesting to see how his chin does fare after that, but in my opinion, I think he's going to be relatively similar to what we all know and love him for. But now let's move on to Rafael Fiziev. What does he do well out there? So similar to Justin Gaethje, Fiziev is certainly a stand-up fighter. Fiziev is one of the more technical guys in the lightweight division, and I certainly think you can make the argument that he's the best striker in that division. Fiziev does a really nice job at throwing out that jab, that left to right straight, uppercut, hook, cross, basically has all the abilities in terms of his boxing. But besides his great boxing abilities, Fiziev also has a tremendous kicking game. But unlike Gaethje, Fiziev also has a great ability to throw to the body and the head, not just the legs. And Fiziev's body kick is probably one of the best in the lightweight division. And what makes Fiziev so great out there, besides his diversity on the feet, is the fact that he's very creative alongside with the power that he does possess. He's the type of guy that can throw out a combination and end it with a spinning wheel kick to the head. Now, I mentioned before that Justin Gaethje is a technical striker, but he's more so of a guy that's technical for someone who gets into firefights all the time. But the difference between him and Fiziev is just straight up technical out there, whether he's in a firefight or not. Gaethje is certainly a lot more technical than people give him credit for, but Fiziev is certainly the much more technical fighter out there, in terms of his stand-up abilities at least. Now in terms of his takedown defense, Fiziev is tremendous at stopping the takedown, and in my opinion I don't see Gaethje taking it to the ground. Now in terms of his ground game, we really haven't seen all that much of Fiziev on the ground, so we're not really sure what to expect from that, but in this matchup I don't really expect it to come down to that. And lastly, in terms of his chin, Fiziev has a tremendous chin as well. But now let's break down this specific matchup between Rafael Fiziev and Justin Gaethje. Well, in my opinion, I think this matchup comes down to one of two things. If the fight stays in close for the most part, I think Justin Gaethje is going to have the more success, or if the fight stays at a distance for the most part, I think Fiziev is going to have the more success. Now I do think this is going to look like a Justin Gaethje fight. I do think they're going to get into some firefights in certain stretches of this matchup, but at the end of the day, I do think Fiziev is poised enough and disciplined enough in order to know when he's in danger and get out of there. If Fiziev's able to keep this at a distance, throw his kicks to the legs, body, and head, and use that jab effectively against Gaethje, I do think he's going to have a lot of success and ultimately win this matchup. But if Gaethje's able to keep it in close, I think he's obviously going to have more success. Now, although there has been a lot of chatter of Gaethje potentially taking this fight to the ground, I don't necessarily think that's going to be a factor in this unless Gaethje gets really hurt and looks to shoot. But even then, I don't see Gaethje being successful in his takedown attempts if he does even attempt it. But in terms of my official prediction for this matchup, I'm picking Rafael Fiziev by decision. Now, it is certainly possible that Fiziev gets a knockout. He's extremely powerful and he's extremely technical, but I just think Gaethje's legendary chin is once again going to hold up for the most part, and I do see him being able to survive, and I honestly see him having some success in the fight. But the determining factor for me for why I think Fiziev is going to win this matchup is just I think he's too technical out there. I think he's going to be able to keep this fight at a distance, and he's going to have a lot of success with that. If Gaethje tries to come in close, I think Fiziev will be able to hurt Gaethje and force Gaethje back. Now, with that being said, Gaethje of course does have a chance in this matchup. I do think it's a very close one, but I just think Rafael Fiziev has the better chance to win this matchup, and I do think he's going to put on a masterclass against Gaethje. But I guess only time will tell what does end up happening in this matchup between these two guys. But anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think Rafael Fiziev or Justin Gaethje will win this matchup? But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did enjoy, check one of these two videos popping up now, and until the next time, peace out guys.